Studios.
Welcome back to Laughing in the Dark, the podcast where I hang out in haunted places with comedians. This is another fixture in our Sunday Minisode series where I talk to you about your ghost stories. For this Minisode, I spoke to Alien Wolf. Yes, that really is his name, from New Orleans. Alien Wolf told me about some haunting encounters that were so impactful for his life that it actually drove him out of his hometown. Here's the call. Hey guys, before we get into today's minisode, I just want to take a minute to wish a very special happy birthday to Kaylee Noakes in Whitechapel, London. Kaylee is turning 30 today. Have the best day ever today, Kaylee, and enjoy this call.
Hello.
Hi, this is Sarah calling from Laughing in the Dark.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Were you expecting my call?
I am.
Okay, good deal. So before we get started, do you want to introduce yourself to listeners and say your name and something about you?
Sure. My name is unusual in itself. My name is Alien Wolf. There's a whole story behind that, but I am originally born and raised in New Orleans.
Ooh.
And lived there my whole life, and have encountered many unexplained and strange things there, being in New Orleans, the town that it is.
Yes.
But until recently, the last couple of years, when this latest thing happened to me that we're going to be talking about, I never encountered anything life-changing like that.
Huh.
In fact, I always, growing up in New Orleans, you always encounter some creepy things and unusual circumstances and things that growing up there that's sort of, inherent in living there and growing up there. And I grew up in a big 3-story house with a big basement that nobody would go down into because you had this weird feeling down there, but nothing malevolent or nothing evil ever attacked anybody that I know of. But there was obviously something there that couldn't be explained. And we had some things happen to us as a family growing up there. My mom and dad and my aunts and uncles lived there in this big home. And, just things like unusual music playing that we couldn't explain. And when nobody was home, hearing noises. And like I said, the presence of something down in that basement that made everybody very uncomfortable. But beyond that, lived there for many years, obviously growing up. Nothing that was anywhere near what you're going to hear me talk about.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of stories here. But can we back
I do have
up
a lot of stories.
1 second?
Yes.
Is Alien Wolf your given name?
It is not my name. It's who I am.
Okay.
It's a whole nother story, but I'll give you the quick 2-second version of it. I had a near-death experience with a surgery. I had a brain tumor in my spinal cord.
Oh, no.
And when I survived that, and that was about 12 years ago, I reinvented myself, not only physically, but mentally, and that was the name that I chose. My original name being Brian, I kind of left that behind, and that's a whole story in itself.
I see. Okay, so do you go by any names for short, or is it just Alien Wolf, all one word?
Well, close friends call me Wolf, and so I go by Wolf, but, I have many names, but that's the one I go by.
Okay, got it. All right, so let's get into this. You've really gotten me excited. So are you living in New Orleans right now?
No, when this occurrence happened to me, I moved out to the suburbs in New Orleans with my wife and young son. And what I'm going to tell you about, we had to leave New Orleans. We had to leave our home because of the intensity of what was going on and what happened to us there.
Oh my goodness.
And I I had to leave completely, and I moved out to Salt Lake City, Utah, to get away from whatever it was that was there.
Wow. Okay. So this is wild. I can't wait to hear your story.
Yeah, this is a real life-changing event, far beyond just a simple ghost story. This is more of a testimony and a warning to people listening to what happened to us. So I'll quickly tell you, I'll jump right into it. As I mentioned, growing up in New Orleans in a big home, we had those little occurrences that happened. My cousin used to come over, and she had a Ouija board, and nothing bad ever happened. It was really entertaining. She would make the table levitate with her knee, and we were entertained by it. It was fun, and I liked all the horror movies and monster stuff and Halloween stuff like everybody. But I never, none of that is real to me. Not to say that I didn't believe that there are some things that are, but I think they're so rare, that most people, 99.9% of us, will never experience them. So I was a believer, but not to the point where I thought it was happening all the time or that it would ever happen to me.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, that's why I'm bringing that up, so that your listeners and yourself understand that this isn't something I wanted to happen because I like ghost stuff. I like it like everybody else. Everybody likes to be scared a little bit, but this isn't about being scared. This goes far beyond that. And a realization of something that I didn't expect or didn't even know really existed. So my sister and my mom came over to my house one day, and they brought me a present, and it was a Ouija board. And the reason they brought it was because, as I mentioned, my cousin used to come over and scare us with it, and it was just pure entertainment. Nothing ever happened, and it was fun. And besides, the Ouija board that you buy now, that's from Parker Brothers, and it's sold as a novelty, and I didn't really think anything of it. Having a seance, and it's just fun to do. It's not a big deal. You light a candle and you scare each other, and that's the end of it. Well, I heard stories about the Ouija board, but I never really researched it or really looked into it beyond that, because, like I said, it's just a board game. It can't possibly have any power over you. So she brought it over, and we lit a candle. Now, you gotta understand, my mom and my sister, they're super highly intelligent people. My mom's a teacher and a classical pianist and a very spiritual, religious person. So we didn't have any kind of weird intent on this thing. My wife was there, and she was uncomfortable with it. She didn't want to do it. So she just stood by the kitchen table where we were doing this. So we had the lights off, we had a candle lit. And I don't know if your listeners or you are familiar with this Ouija board thing, but you got this little thing that kind of moves around the board. You kind of put your hand on it, and it spells out stuff and does things. And immediately this thing started moving. Now, I immediately stopped, and I looked at my mom and my sister, and I told them, I said, what are y'all doing? You're trying to trick me? And they had this startled look on their face. And I got to tell you, if anybody was going to make it move and scare somebody, it would have been me, because I'm the one that was, entertained by that kind of thing. But It was moving, and I wasn't doing it. So I said, look, let's do it again, but let's be real. Let's see if something really does happen. So they wasn't doing it. Neither was I. We went right back to doing it. And this thing is moving. I mean, I wasn't even touching it. And it's spelling stuff on this board. Now, we wasn't prepared. I didn't have a notepad. It was moving so quick and pointing at letters. And none of us really remember what it was telling us or spelling. My mother seems to think it was spelling one of our grandmothers, Helen. But, I saw H-E-L. I'm thinking hell. I kind of lost track after that.
Yeah.
But then something really weird happened. Now, by trade, I play music. I'm a musician, but I'm also an electrician or electronic technician. I bring that up because what happened, the room filled with this static electricity that was palatable. It wasn't nobody's imagination. It wasn't like, like when you rub your feet on a carpet and touch something and you discharge some static. This was so unusual that we all felt it. We looked at each other, and my wife, who wasn't at the table, that was standing next to the table, I could see her face like, what is this? And it was building to an intensity that you felt like something was getting ready to happen. Somebody was coming in the room. We don't even know, but it was so weird and so strong that my wife flicked the kitchen light on, and it immediately broke it. It went away, and we were startled by it. Now, I'm just saying it was just static electricity. We didn't hear anything. We didn't see anything. We didn't smell anything. It was just this electricity that was real. And my being an electrician, go ahead.
So the kitchen light broke when she went to turn it on? Is that what you just said?
No. She flicked the light on. In other words, we were in the dark with the candle. And the static electricity from whatever was getting ready to happen from this Ouija board seance thing was so strong, it scared my wife to death, and she flicked the light on. And when she turned the light on, that electricity, that static electricity, whatever it was, it died. It went away. So it killed whatever that frequency change. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
that frequency change of being in the light ended it. And we were startled by it because we all felt it, and we were so, bewildered by that we didn't do it again. So we kind of just left it alone and shrugged it off, and that was it. Now, I did a bunch of research after this, long after all this stuff started to happen, I'll tell you about, that there's rules with this Ouija board thing, but I didn't read any of it. I didn't check it out because I just thought it was just a board game, which maybe it is. But then so that was the end of that. And we talked about it a little bit afterwards, and what can you say? There's nothing to say. Then things started happening that were, I never really connected it to the Ouija board until I tell you how things started to progress. The first things that started to happen were just unusual kind of poltergeisty kind of stuff flying across the room, and sounds of water pouring and doors slamming, and I kind of, put the Ouija board thing behind me where I didn't even connect that was affiliated with it. And to this day, I don't really know if it was, but it had to be, because we lived in a house for 15 years and we never got a creepy feeling or even thought anything twice about any of this kind of stuff I'm telling you about. It wasn't till that Ouija board night that this started to happen. But when I tell you what ended up happening, you won't believe it. So that was the first things. My wife would say, "Hey, who threw that screwdriver across the room?" I'm like, "What?"
Whoa.
And then I go look, and there's a screwdriver.
That could be
one
dangerous.
of those pocket screwdrivers. Well, it could be. It was, but when that happens to you, you don't have an explanation for it. You just left dumbfounded.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of a scientific person because I'm a schooled electrical person. So I start to look for, the reason with, okay, did it fall off a shelf? Did it, there's no explanation for it. You can't find one. So you just left with, and I don't know what that's about. And you go on with your day and your life because there's nothing else for you to do.
Yeah.
Then we started, my wife and I noticed, this is so weird, we started getting visited by weird animals. Now, I love animals. We're pet friendly. We didn't have any pets. And I'm not talking about normal animals. I mean, growing up in New Orleans and, born and raised in the swamp, I'm familiar with animals. I've been out in the marsh and the swamp in the middle of the night with my boat, alligators and snakes. And, there's everything down here. I say down here, I'm in Utah now.
But yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So the first thing, like some crazy dogs. Well, okay, that's kind of weird. They're
Like
barking and growling
dogs?
at everybody. Well, yeah, they just showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they're barking and growling at people, my wife, my son, but they're not growling at me. They're like just staring at me and devoted to me. Now, I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of normal, I guess. But I'm not feeding them. I don't want them to be dependent on, maybe they're just stray dogs. And this gigantic cat, I mean, this cat was like a lion. I've never seen a cat this big before. This big black cat. Now if you're listening to this, that sounds, well, that's not a big deal. And I agree. Like, there's stray cats and stray dogs. I wasn't feeding them. They just showed up and they would wait for me at the back door where I come in from work every day. They would be sitting there waiting for me.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I'll throw this in real quick so you know, they would follow me to work. I'm in my car driving on the interstate 70 miles an hour. And I look in my rearview mirror and these animals are behind me in traffic. I'm like, that is crazy.
Yeah, that is
and
crazy.
I'd get to work, and like 2 hours later, they would show up at the work, and my boss and them would go, "Hey, whose dogs are these?" And I wouldn't say nothing. I didn't tell them they were following me.
Yeah.
And finally, and then they put it together because they would see the dogs. They would growling at people. I'd walk out there and they would be looking at me like they were mine. And they realized, hey, Brian, those are your animals. I'm like, hey, they're not mine. Follow me home. So anyway.
Weird.
That's dogs and cats. But wait. Then this gigantic bird. I've never seen a bird this big in my life. I've seen birds this big in pictures. But this is the size of an eagle. This bird was like 3 feet tall. It was waiting for me under my carport on top of my car. Now, you might hear this and say, well, it's a bird. This is an apex predator animal. It's not going to let a human come that close to it. It's massive. It's obviously old and it's big. I'm telling you, I'm not trying to say how big it is to exaggerate the story because I want your listeners and you to know. This isn't about an exaggeration. Entertain me. This animal, this bird he was 3 feet tall and he was just staring at me. I walk out my back door to go to work and I could have reached out and grabbed it. I looked at the talons on this thing and it ripped me to shreds. I'm like, oh my God, what is this thing doing here? So I didn't move to see what it would do. I'm just going to stand here. And we stared at each other, almost like it was giving me a message, like a warning.
Oh, so I was going to ask like how it felt. So it felt like there was like camaraderie there. Like it felt like it was trying to help you.
Yeah, Neil, thanks for asking that. That's a great question because, when you look at an animal like a bird, community. I mean, I'm not Dr. Doolittle, but there was something. There was something there, and I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know, so I just stood still. I didn't want to startle it. I didn't know if it was going to attack me, but it seemed to me like it was warning me. It was staring at me. It was unusual, and you got to understand. I got to paint a picture for you. For this bird that size to get underneath my carport, I mean, there's no food, there's no garbage. It's not looking for there's nothing there for it to be there. It's there for me, and I knew it. But what do you do? I mean, I got to go to work, and I don't know. And so after we stared at each other for about, 30, 45 seconds. When I say 30, 40, that's a long time. When you're face to face with a big apex predator animal like this. And with one swoop, it opened up its wings. I'm telling you, this thing was easily 4 or 5 feet across. It was like a giant pterodactyl sitting there.
Oh my God.
It swoops out between my house and my neighbor's house, and you got to know in the suburbs in New Orleans, these houses are right next to each other. This is very skillful for this animal to do that. This isn't just like some little sparrows and they're flying around bushes, This isn't that.
Yeah. Then
it gets weirder. I look in my window, I see something looking in the window. And I go up to the window. It's a giant bat. A bat.
Oh, geez.
Now look, there's bats down here, in the swamp, New Orleans. But you don't ever see them. I mean, they're out at night probably eating insects by the lights, I lived there my whole life. I never seen a bat. But I never seen a bat looking at me through the window. And this bat he was sprawled out across the window looking in. He wasn't like perched upside down making a nest. He was right side up with his wings completely opened looking in the window.
Was he hanging on the window or was he like flying?
No, he was grabbed onto the screen. So there's a screen outside the window and he's attached to the screen and he's obviously looking in the house.
Weird.
He's looking in.
Yeah.
Oh,
especially weird because bats are blind. Because
thank you. So right, that's not normal behavior.
No.
These animal stories I'm telling you about leading up to what happened, none of this is normal behavior. So I'm thinking that's a rubber bat. There ain't no way that's a real bat. And one of my friends must have put it there. Now, I say this to you. No friends are doing this to me at the time. No friends have ever done this to me at the time. It's in my backyard window, which has got a big giant fence and it's locked. So, all right, I'll go outside. Let me see what this is. I roll up a newspaper and I go right up to it. I'm looking at it and go, that's a freaking real bat. So I whacked it off the screen, hoping it would just fly off. But I guess I stunned it when I hit it so hard that it fell to the ground and was dead.
Oh, my God.
I was telling people at work this was happening to me. I put that bat in a plastic garbage bag and I brought him to work with me.
Oh, my God.
To prove it. I go to work. I go, I got something in the trunk I want to show y'all. And they're like, oh, here he goes with another story. And I open up the trunk and I go, look in that bag. They're like, holy crap, it's a bat.
Oh, my God.
I needed validation.
Yeah.
I needed somebody else to see what was going on. Something was going on with me in that house that was not normal. So anyway, the next thing you know, these giant rats show up. Now, when I say this to you, first thing people think of is you got garbage laying around, you got a dirty house. All that comes to mind. Rats don't show up at nice, pristine houses. Let me tell you something. I am one of these people that has to dust and keep everything super neat and nice. I got a little thing. So these rats wouldn't showing up because of dirt or filth or, food laying around, or we don't do dishes or whatever conjures up in your mind about rats. They were massive too. We could hear them in my attic at night. So,
how big were they? I've seen like huge rats in Chicago.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that. These aren't mice, and these aren't rats like, the size of your hand rat. These are like small dog rats. They were massive. They were huge adult. I mean, they were big. So I went and bought the biggest traps I could find, and I put them up there, and I killed them with these rat traps, and I put poison out, and that little war went on for a few days, and I finally killed them all. And I searched around the house and plugged every hole. I mean, like I said, I'm worked on my house every weekend because that's what I did. It was just enjoyable, and my house wasn't falling apart. It wasn't filled with holes. And I get that's what people would think. Well, no. So I don't know how they got in, and so I killed them with these traps. Well, one Saturday morning, I hear a noise. It's a buzzing sound. And I mean a loud buzzing sound coming from the other side of the house. And it was so loud, it woke me up. And I get up And I go look, and it's coming from my utility room. I open up the utility room. You know what it sounded like? It sounded like, you know how that buzzer is on your dryer? You know, when it finishes a timing cycle?
Yeah.
And it makes that noise.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that's what it was, because it sounded, and it was loud. And I'm like, oh, the timer on the thing must have went off.
Right.
But it was constant. I open up the door, and it's not the dryer. It's coming from the window. And I swear, at this point, I'm like, what now? I mean, I've reached a point where I'm expecting weird stuff. I'm like, what now?
Right.
I pull the curtain back, and now the window, let me describe it for you. These are storm windows, because we live down there in New Orleans with the hurricanes. We have these special windows, and these storm windows are double insulated glass with argon gas in between the sheets of glass. Mm-hmm. So they're really high wind, highly insulated, protected glass. They're not normal little sheet of glass. The reason I bring that up is in between the two pieces of glass that is sealed from the factory. You can't get in there because it's sealed with this argon gas. These gigantic flies. Oh. Flies I'd never seen before. They were black, and they were the size of your thumb. And there was hundreds of them.
And they're inside the window?
Inside the window glass, the two sheets of glass that it's sealed. Like, in other words, there ain't no way to get them in, and there ain't no way to get them out.
Right. Oh,
I'm like, what the hell is this? How could they have gotten in there?
Yeah.
Where did they come from? I'm like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
So the only thing I could do, I went outside with a hammer. I had to break the glass. And you think they would have all flown off? No. They just were crawling in that space.
Oh, that's
buzzing.
Creepy.
Oh, my God. It's like Amityville Horror stuff. I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
So I get the shop back. Because now I'm doing this stuff, so I don't want my wife to see this, okay?
Yeah, you don't want her
to get freaked out. I'm trying to hide these things. At this point, I'm trying to protect my family. At this point, I don't want them to know all this stuff going on. I mean, she knew because she saw the screwdriver flying, but you know, she never saw the bird, and she didn't see the bat. So I was hiding stuff from her now because it was too evident that something was weird going on. I didn't want to scare her. So I I vacuumed all these flies out, and I ordered a new window and told her it was just defective, and I got a new window in. Well, okay, now things go to another direction. So I know we got limited time. So
no, I'm very highly entertained.
Yeah.
You're a very good storyteller.
So, thank you. So then what happens next is where it goes to the next level. These are levels, you know, kind of look at things in levels. So now we're going to go to the next level. And that is, we're sleeping in the middle of the night, and now we start to hear stuff. And we're not thinking, you understand, you're not thinking nothing creepy. We're still not thinking nothing but no Ouija board. These are things that, you know, when you live in your home, you know every sound of your house. I'm not talking about a house settling or a squeaky noise or some piddle paddle on the roof or the wind blowing. I'm not talking about those noises. You know, if you live in your house right now, if I was to tell you, you got so many doors in your house. So we had a front door, side door, and a back door. Each one of those doors make a distinctive sound.
Yeah.
If I was to open it and close it in your home, I wouldn't know what door it was, but you would.
Yeah.
All doors have different sounds. Now, my back door is a steel security door. Side door is this big wooden door. Took 3 people to hang it on the hinge. Once again, hurricane stuff. With a hurricane door outside of it, and my front door was a big wooden door as well that made a completely different sound. It had all kind of different locks on it. When you live in New Orleans, you know, there's a lot of crime. So we wake up in the middle of the night to things like the door slamming. I mean, when I say wake up, I don't mean like you sit up in bed and go, what was that? I'm talking about so loud, and you know what you heard. My wife jumped up out of the bed. I jumped out at the same time. We were in REM sleep. We were completely sound asleep. It was 3 a.m. By the way, all the stuff I'm telling you about right now, all happened at 3 a.m. I did a little
the witching
research
hour.
on what that means. The witching hour, of course, and I didn't even know that. But the door slammed, and my wife's like, "Oh my God, somebody's in the house." I mean, she had panic on her face that I'd never seen, and it scared the hell out of me too. Now, typical New Orleanian, I sleep with a gun next to my bed, and I'm not a big gun guy either, but I had a gun, and so I go, and I'm telling you now, I fully expected somebody to be standing there. I had prepared myself that this was going to go down, and I was going to be shot or I was shooting somebody. No question about it. Wasn't a doubt in my mind. I heard it. She heard it. We woke up. We were standing there in our room, shivering, and I prepared myself for the worst. So I ran in there with the gun out in front of me, and of course I get there, and the door's closed. We heard it slam, but the door was closed. The lock was on. The alarm system's on. The storm door outside that door is locked from the inside. There's nobody there. So I go walking back into the bedroom. My wife's like, she wants an explanation, and I don't have one. We know what we heard. Now that's just one little. I'm going through this quick because there was a lot of things like that. Another one was the kitchen table, big wooden kitchen table moved across the kitchen floor. We both heard it. It woke us up in the middle of the night. We know what we heard. Once again, we assumed somebody broke in. They got in without the alarm going off, and the house was in complete darkness, and maybe they bumped into the kitchen table. That was the explanation I had. Once again, I'm out there with the gun. Ain't nobody there. The kitchen table's not moved. We know what we heard. Weird. It's almost like this thing started, you know what it is? This is really freak. This is whatever it is, it knows these sounds and it starts to mimic them. But almost like a copycat, like a tape recorder. Very bizarre. And I'm talking to you scientifically. I'm like, what is the other explanation for this? Whatever it is that's causing these sounds, it knows the sound exactly it produces the sound without the physicality of doing it. In other words, it can slam the door sound, but not really slam the door.
Yeah.
But you know what you hear. My wife collects cookie jars. We would have she got these big, beautiful porcelain cookie jars. We have a massive kitchen. It was really big. And these cookie jars, they're all over the place on the counter. And we would hear the cookie jars, We know. And look, you know what I'm saying? Cookie jars, to her, she knows every cookie jar sound. They all have different sounds, right? So like the door thing I was telling. She's like, oh, my God, the cookie jar. I got to go run in there and, maybe somebody's stealing a cookie. I don't know what's going on. Nah, ain't nobody fooling with nothing. Nothing's going on. So these noises start to escalate. They're getting louder. And they're getting bigger. Well, then, all right, you ready? Let's go to the next level. Here it comes.
I'm ready.
Now, here it goes. After all of this, where's this going? We wake up in the middle of the night and we can sense something. Now this is different. I start to get that line up my back. And you know what? I never talked about this for 4 years. I'm going to tell you why. It freaking traumatized me.
Oh.
I never went on no shows. I didn't write a book. Everybody says you should write a book. I never did nothing. I never told nobody about it. I didn't want to talk about it because it traumatized me.
Thanks for your call, Alien Wolf. Do you have a ghost story that you want to tell on Laughing in the Dark? Email us at litdarkpodcast@gmail.com or write to us in our Contact Us form on our website, litdarkpodcast.com. We may want to feature you on the show. Thanks so much for listening.